Welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Oh, hello and welcome back to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and today I have a hot topic with an incredible human that I have been really looking forward to interviewing. This is Gina Worful. She's a registered dietitian and a master of human nutrition. She is all about the gut and hormone connection and really coming to find our nutrition from the inside out. I met Gina not too long ago, and I am just so excited to have her on here. She's going to give us so many gems today. So Gina, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing so good. Thanks for having me, Jaime. I'm so excited to finally do this with you.
I know, me too. Thank you. You're such a ray of sunshine from the moment I met you back at Bottle Rock to now. I just have been really looking forward to connecting and really just going over. Actually, I love that because that's our word of the day. So, Gina, you chose the word connection, which by definition is a relationship in which a person, thing, or idea is linked or associated with something else. And right when you mentioned that word to me, immediately it resonated and just thought, oh my gosh, this is where we need to go with this. I have so many good questions for you today that my clients have been asking me. And, what better way to do this than to chat with you about it? So, can you just real quickly tell us about the word connection and what it means to you right now?
Yeah, I think connection has been the if I thought of like one thing that allowed me to really step into my health from a place of trust, it is connection. And I think I've been a classically trained dietitian. And so sometimes when people hear that word dietitian, they're like, oh, so you give out meal plans and you slap my wrist if I eat, the pizza. And, I have to try and report to you, right? And when I first became a dietitian, that's kind of what it was like, right? And throughout my experience with myself, it actually freedom came from learning about connection, not from mental willpower, but truly through freedom. And that's where my health really was thriving. So connection to me was connection to myself and how my body is speaking to me, and connection to my food, connection to everything around me, my habits, my environment, and this greater 360 awareness that has given me so much freedom.
Yes. Wow. And couldn't resonate with me, and I'm sure everybody that's listening so much more. Connection is so key in every element of our life. It's something that I, preach about in the self-care realm, and all about the village, that it's not just this one thing, that we're all connected. So it makes sense that that would, resonate within our bodies as well. You brought up something I want to just ask about, just straightforward. You said, really listening to your body and knowing those cues and signals. And I think for many of us, that's really challenging to know. Is our body telling us this based on our subconscious, or is this our conscious mind that's bringing the awareness to say, I'm full, I'm hungry, I'm craving this, I'm that? Are there any specific, just quick kind of cues that you would say right out the gate could, someone could start today listening to their body a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first, in order to have connection, we have to shift our mindset from thinking that everything our body is doing is wrong. I think we've been in a society where we're taught that connection is actually bad. Our appetite is bad. Our cravings are bad. We have to suppress, and try to disconnect. And instead of trusting your body, it cannot be trusted. It's this evil thing that turns on us. So we have to follow a meal plan and willpower our way with our mind. And our mind is only one tiny piece of connection. Our body is full of so much information. And one of the really great examples that I love of this is, we are a species just like any other animal. And if you think about something like a squirrel will, before it ever has its first winter, it will go and intuitively know, I need to go gather food and hide it for the winter, even though it's never had that experience before. And so if it didn't trust that inner wisdom from its body telling it what to do, if its mind was like, this doesn't make sense, you have plenty of food, the animal would starve and die, and we would not have squirrels as a species. And so we're constantly getting these messages of what to do and what to eat, but it gets really confusing because we have different things that drive us to eat. We have emotions, we have marketing from foods and advertising, we have all these different behaviors. We're being run by stress hormones. So it gets really confusing, but everything that comes from our body is for a reason. So when you have a craving that is trying to get your attention and it's like, hey, go eat that food, it's actually a message from your body communicating to you. So connection starts with a mindset of curiosity, of saying, my body does everything for a reason. It is all valuable. When I'm hungry, maybe we don't love it because we're trying to lose weight, right? But it's a signal that our body is telling us and trying to get our attention. Sometimes the messages get distorted, but when we can come from a place of curiosity of there's nothing wrong with my body, let me explore where this craving is coming from, what this message is trying to tell me, or why my body is driven to do certain things or eat certain foods. Let me explore that. And from a place of trust, now we can start to actually open the door for communication because it's coming from curiosity instead of shame and reprimand.
Wow, powerful and spot on. Right now that hit me. I'm like, yeah, that's so true. When we can come at it and trust ourselves, like we're all. I love that you brought up the squirrel because I think that's just something that we can all kind of put our mind to and make it a little less emotional and more objective within ourselves, which I think can be really helpful when it comes to food because so many of us have such a really interesting relationship to food based on our shame, guilt, and everything else from our childhood, or however the gimmicky things that we try, that can really
Yeah.
mess up some of our metabolism qualities and things. So another question that I wanted to ask you on that is the gut health. The gut, now many of us will call it the second brain, and that are starting to understand that there is so much going on within our gut that maybe years ago we weren't really aware of or as much aware of. And now, like I ask my clients when they first start with me is to please go get some blood work and get some labs done so we can kind of see where you are, just to at the very least collect some, once again, objective data. Now, what would you say is kind of some key things people could start doing if right now they're like, okay, I want to work on my gut. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it all comes back to connection. Like everything actually comes back to the same thing. Most people have gut issues, which is driving their food choices because of how they're eating. It's a lot of the time, it's not necessarily what they're eating. So if you're in a place of overwhelm, you're really stressed and you're running and you're eating really fast and you're just like, you're eating fast, you're not thinking, you're distracted, you're multitasking, you're working, you're doing all these different things. What happens is our body is either in a fight or flight state, which is your sympathetic nervous system, or you're in rest and digest, which when you're in rest and digest, when your parasympathetic nervous system is turned on, the only way we can turn on that entire system is with our mind. Our brain is the first thing that signals to our body, hey, it's time to eat. And so we can only do that through connection. There's no button that we can press that says, turn on enzymes to digest my food, right? Like we can't like click all these things on and release enzymes in our body. And when our food doesn't get properly digested, what happens is it just like ferments in the stomach. It gets poorly digested. So if you have bloating or IBS or constipation, or that's just some real signs that your food is not being digested. Sometimes we don't even have gut issues and we don't realize that our food is just fermenting and creating all this irritation, and our gut microbiome starts to shift. We start to grow unhealthy bacteria versus the healthy bacteria. And when we start to grow the unhealthy bacteria, they'll start sending signals to our brain to crave more sugar. It'll alter our mood. And so those little bacteria, just like you said, they're starting to be considered the first brain because they're sending messages to our brain of what to go eat. So when it comes back to connection, it actually starts with observing, how are you eating? When you sit down to eat, are you still in a fight or flight state? If you're standing is like your brain is getting the message, we're up, we're going, we're not in rest and digest, right? It kind of comes back to those primitive cues, just like the squirrel, right? So we have to actually be signaling to our body, we're calm, we're sitting. Most people are eating fast and holding their breath. And I have to say, I understand this whole process because this has been my journey. Like when I started, I was eating really fast. I could never feel if I was full. I wasn't really digesting my food. And I felt like everything in my body was off. So when I started practicing, this is just a skill. If you're bad at it and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a fast eater. Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so disconnected. Your most powerful tool is just your breath. Your breath. Research shows it takes 3 deep breaths to lower your stress hormone cortisol. And when that happens, then you flip from a fight or flight to a rest and digest state. So I think a really great practice is when you go to eat, give yourself some boundaries. I like to think of eating time as like my ritual. It's like, I am a queen. I deserve to be sitting to have like my food in front of me. If I'm going to eat the calories, I deserve to taste it, enjoy it. I don't want to just snack on a bar in the car while I'm driving. And I know this can be harder if you have kids, but try and teach them the same experience that you're having. Like, let's all sit down, let's turn off the TV and just have really good conversation. And before you start eating, notice what a huge difference it makes if you take a couple slow breaths, just really nice and slow in through your nose, and then just letting it out and just feel your body just drop down. And it's almost, to me, it's like it's activating all of my digestion and the connection. And I can actually feel the difference between, okay, what is a craving? What is my real hunger? And then my food is going to get digested better. I'll start absorbing nutrients. It's going to feed my gut microbiome. And then everything's going to come into balance just by using that power of my breath.
Wow. Thank you so very much for emphasizing that. It is a practice that I had to learn through the years, and it sounds like you maybe did too. And there are many of us out there that
Yeah.
are still, and I was the worst. I was the eating up standing, eating in the car, throwing a bar, protein shake, on the go, totally sympathetic nervous system activated all the way. And at that same time, I was diagnosed with IBS, I had
Mm.
so much bloating, I had hormonal issues, my periods were all out of whack. I mean,
Yep.
you name it, it was all, well, my skin was crazy. And interestingly enough, back then, and now this is back when I was real young, and I remember thinking, well, after going to all these different doctors and getting all this work done, they were like, oh, we'll take this pill. Here, oh, well, you
Right.
have acne, like take Accutane. Oh, you have this, take this. Oh, you have acid reflux. Oh, here, take this pill, right?
Yep.
And I just remember feeling that like I didn't want to take medication. And I'm so thankful looking back now because I am definitely one of those people that I've been able to manage through all of those things. Like I don't have IBS anymore. I have 28-day cycles that are very regular. And
Amazing.
like, and
Yep.
so I look back and I'm like, okay, it was certainly not a quick process. It was not the like quick fix, take the pill and you feel all better. But looking back now, my body feels incredible. And I'm so thankful that you brought this up because I think especially for the parents in the world, and I have, my child, and I am a stickler. Like I'm not a stickler for most things. I'm actually quite the opposite. But when it comes to sitting and eating our meals together, I am the person that is like, no cell phones, no, like we can have music in the background. That is it. We are going to have a conversation and we're going to sit here and enjoy this
It's
meal.
amazing.
And what's crazy about this is most of the time it's like pulling teeth to get people to do that. Even my
Right.
adult friends, right? I'm like, phones down. I just want to be with you. Like, of course, if it's, you have to get this call or whatnot. But I think our society here has steered so clear from that, that's
Mm.
just a simple ass thing we could do today to start bringing that, like reining it in a little bit, to start listening and building up that connection. So I'd love to hear
Yeah.
from you a little bit of your journey. And I think it's really important because this podcast is all based on, in the most inspirational people that I've met, you being one of them. And how can we inspire each other to recognize that it's not about being perfect. You maybe weren't always like I always was not the self-care queen that I am today. In fact, I was the opposite, which is what led me to what I'm doing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and how you became, you know, the gut and hormone specialist and really master of human nutrition.
Oh, yeah. Well, everything I do now has been shaped from my journey. So thank you for asking. Like growing up, I was always just so hungry for information. Like I wanted to know, what's the best diet plan? I was the kid in high school who was picking up every magazine. Like the secret to everything is on page 67. And I was like, where's page 67? Oh my God. And it says to eat almonds. I better eat almonds every day. I was always trying to find the answers. And so I was just really wanted to know information, and I was crazy about eating healthy and exercising. And so I am very grateful. I came from a health conscious family and just a genuine interest in it. And so I went to college because I was determined to find the truth. I was like, college will tell me what is the truth, right? Because my mom
What is
was
on
always
page
doing diets.
67?
Yeah. What is the truth? Because my mom was doing all these different diets. And so I was like, which one has the answers, And so I got my undergrad degree, and they're just like, here's how the body works, which I thought was super interesting. Here's how you navigate science. Now, when you become a practitioner, you give people their, calorie meal plans based on a calculation. It's all based in science, and you send them on your way. And so I'm like, okay, but I want to learn, like, this must not just be it. So still unhappy with the answers I got, I decided to stay in college and get my master's degree. I was like, sure enough, if I get my master's degree in human nutrition, then I'll have the answers, right? And my master's degree was great, but it was kind of just like deeper learning in the same thing. And they're like, now go into do your thing and give people these expert plans because you know all about biochemistry and how the body works. And so I was like, okay, I'm armed with 2 degrees. And so I open up my practice and, start working with people, and I'm giving them their meal plans, and I'm trying to create meal plans for myself too. I'm like, I know how to calculate calories. I know how to properly do the right proteins and everything, the right foods. And I'm giving people these plans. And what would happen was they would come in really motivated, like this time this is going to work. And you have the degrees, you're not a scam. And I'm like, yep, this is all based in science. What would start happening was my clients would start coming back, and they would come with this like shame, like they're coming for confession. And they were like, I really wanted this, but like, I just couldn't do it. And this happened and this got in the way. And I would try and be their cheerleader and be like, you can do it. Even though you're having a hard time, like exercise and eating healthy makes you feel good. Right. And I'm trying to be like their positive cheerleader. And what actually happened was they would do these sprints where they could stick to it, even if it was just a few goals, nothing extreme, but they could stick to it for a while. And then they would self-sabotage, and they would come back full of all this shame and come to me for confession. We'd reset goals and we'd do it again. And I had a couple clients for a year, 2 years. And it was kind of like this cycle of motivation, shame. And around that time, I actually went through a really difficult life transition. I was in a business with my sister, and our relationship went really bad. And so I decided to leave the business. And all of a sudden, so that was in addition to my coaching clients. We had a corporate wellness company together. And I decided to leave it. And it just it rocked my world. That was pretty much 90% of my finances and what I had for a business and a brand. And at the same time, I just kind of had this life shift, and I realized that I wasn't in the right relationship. He was talking about getting married, and I broke off my relationship. I moved out. I lost all of my money, and I just started traveling. And it was such an it was one of those big moments where I felt like I lost my identity. It was just like, who am I? I don't have any money. What am I doing? None of my clients are succeeding. My career doesn't feel fulfilling. And I was going through such a hard time. I went from this very intense, healthy lifestyle, which was a lot of work. It was very intense. It took a ton of effort and focus every day to think about my food, to completely losing it and feeling very out of control. Either I was so sad that I didn't want to eat, or my experience was so intense that I didn't feel like I had control over my choices. And I felt like health became this battle. And for the first time, I really understood. I felt my clients so deeply. And I was like, oh, I get it now. This is not about science and numbers. There is so much more happening here. And so I actually stopped working with all of my clients. I closed my practice, and I realized I needed to go on this deeper journey to understand, why do we struggle? Why is it that none of my clients could follow a perfectly crafted scientific meal plan And why couldn't I do it either? Because I had degrees, I was going to conferences, learning about science and nutrition. And no matter how much knowledge I built, the harder it actually became. And knowledge wasn't saving me. I was like trying to scare myself with like, oh, if you don't eat this, if you don't eat this way, it's gonna be bad, right? You're gonna gain weight, or you're gonna be unhealthy, or your hormones are gonna get worse. And nothing really actually helped me. And so I went on this deeper journey of my own inner work of understanding my emotions, my anxiety, my fears, my stress, and then also really looking at the science of why do we sabotage when we have knowledge? And so I started to understand how our safety mechanisms work in the brain, that when your brain feels stress, like anxiety or worry, or even boredom or loneliness or overwhelm, we might not realize it, but what happens is a different area of our brain turns on. Instead of your prefrontal cortex, which is where you have willpower and you're calm, you're collected, it turns on your amygdala, which is your fight or flight system, and it will drive everything for survival. So even though I was like, what the heck, I really want to get back into good shape because I kind of fell off during my difficult transition. I really want this and I really want to eat healthier. My brain was in survival. And it wasn't until I learned how to trust my body's emotions, what it was telling me, and how to calm my nervous system like a little baby, that I could actually stop eating out of fight or flight or making choices and decisions out of a survival place, and more from connection and self-trust. And so today, it's been a huge healing journey. But today, what I love to teach, which I'm so passionate about, is teaching people that you can trust your body, but you might have to calm that little scared person or overwhelmed or stressed person who's being driven by stress hormones, and calm that nervous system. And then you can actually start to come from a place of trust and connection. And then you can use knowledge. I love science. I'm still a science nerd. I love the microbiome. I love how our hormones interact. That was a big part of my healing too, right? It was understanding, doing my labs, understanding what's going on in my body, taking that knowledge. And then as I apply it, not reprimanding or giving myself rules, but seeing how my body is responding and like really honoring how it needs. And now, so my health experience went from very intense, where I stayed in good shape. I felt healthy, but it was very intense. I had to focus all the time. It was a lot of energy. It was a lot of fear, to not feeling in control, lack of self-trust, a lot of self-shaming, to now I finally come to a place where health feels almost effortless. It feels like this very natural from the inside out, because I'm not forcing my body into anything. I'm just in full connection and trust, and I'm spending time on that relationship with myself. And so I feel like my body has rested into a really healthy place, but it's coming from a very different place than what it ever has, all from connection.
That connection, and hearing you say this, there's another follow-up question I want to ask you to that. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge what you just said and what you just shared right now, because in everything that I teach and everything that I've learned on my journey, and all of my mentors that I've worked with and all of my clients I've worked with, the biggest connection that we have when it comes to our self-care is creating that space to give ourselves that love that we would give to somebody else, right? That we would, that trust, that kindness, that self-compassion. Whereas so many of us are so hard on ourselves, or beating ourselves up. We're looking for page 67 in the book of like, what are the answers and why is this not working? And shaming
Yeah.
ourselves, and shooting ourselves and all that. And so hearing you say that you yourself, even though you had the knowledge, you had the power, you knew what to do, you then went on your own journey based on a real personal experience that you went through that was really tough for you, rightfully so. And I would like to dive a little deeper into what was your kind of profound spiritual journey that you had to get you, because I think a lot of people miss that. And I think a lot of people, they come to me and they're like, well, I know, Jamie, you went from being unhealthy to being really healthy. So clearly
Yeah.
you can help me and you have the knowledge and the experience. And I'm like, yes. However, this is about you because you have the answers, right? And so
Mhm.
that deep dive, for me, I had my own spiritual journey. I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of what was that like for you.
Yeah, It was all over the place. I would love to say that it was this realization and then it was this beautiful linear journey, and it was a very messy journey. There were times that I was like, I made it on the other side. I'm great. And then it just, it was kept opening up more and more and got messier and messier. But I think it started when, my life was so chaotic and I realized so much wasn't serving me that I decided to move to San Diego, which was kind of just the magic of the universe, where my cousin was like, hey, I found this really great place. She was already living there and she's like, it has an extra room, you should move here with me. And it just kind of happened and I was like, this is my window to go. And so I started being in a new environment was so huge, going from Michigan to San Diego and being around new people. And I really tried holding it together, but eventually I think I tried overpowering my anxiety with goals. And so even though I felt it and I thought I was healing, at the same time, I was still trying to achieve things to make myself feel better and think that I could outrace anxiety and that I'm this positive person. Hold it together, right? Be positive. Anxiousness is bad, and I wanted to run from my fear and these, quote unquote, bad feelings, but they just kept chasing me like a shadow. And so I thought I was healing. I thought I had started this new life until eventually I was just like, what is wrong with me? And one of the biggest signs was that for some reason I didn't have control over my food. So that was kind of a cue to me that I was like, there's something wrong inside of me, which not, there was just a lot I needed to learn. But at the time, my mindset was there's something really wrong and I don't understand it. And it felt like this internal tight rope in me. And eventually, my sister always wanted me to go to these retreats with her. And I always said no, because we had left on a bad place in our relationship. And she kept asking and asking. And eventually I surrendered and I said yes. And I said, fine, I'll go to this retreat with you. But I was worried about it opening up a lot of stuff. And it really did. And it popped open the lid, just having other people who were doing the inner work. And it unlocked all of my emotions of how much I was trying to cover up my emotions and my enoughness with goals and productivity, and why my life was so full but felt so unfulfilling. And it was like this race to try to make myself feel better with all that I was achieving or things that made me feel good about myself. And I remember someone asking, one of the pivotal moments that somebody asked me at the retreat, he said, do you love yourself? And I was like, I had to think about it. And I was like, yeah, I love myself. I work out. I'm really motivated. I love myself for this business that I'm building, for all these, I'm a go-getter. I like to read. And he goes, that's not love. Those are conditions. You conditionally love yourself. And it hit me like someone smacked me in the face. Like I was like, oh my God, that's not love. And it rocked my world. Like just that one question that I realized, of course, I was struggling with this self-love. Like I didn't love myself because I was only basing it on when I was achieving something, when I was working out, when I was being productive enough, good enough. And so I really actually was truly losing the connection with my true authentic self, which was just loving myself for existing and being. And so that was actually a big part of my spiritual journey, was learning what love actually is. And I did that through connection. And so I continued to go to retreats where they really held the space for trusting yourself and your own connection. And that is where I think just being in the quiet with myself and having people encourage that and say, you can trust yourself. What is your body saying to you? What are your emotions saying to you? Coming from that place of curiosity, loving on my anxiety and not reprimanding it, not running from my fears, but actually turning around and looking at them and loving on them. That allowed me to have this massively healing journey. And now I don't have sugar cravings because I'm running from anxiety or fear. Now if fear comes up, if anxiety comes up, I can love on it and be with it and explore it in connection. So really starting to change my community and be around people who encourage that connection allowed me to really question, what does self-love actually truly mean? And then that healed my relationship to all of it.
And yes, thank you so much for sharing this again. And I have to ask you, so in working on my journey with it, I ended up meeting with an incredible doctor who has studied love and relationships and connection for many, many years, over 50 plus years. She is so amazing. Actually, I think she's in San Diego, um, or nearby there, but she has always just been the person that's like, love is acceptance. Love is accepting that we are whole as we are in this moment right now without conditions, without, and so that kind of changed everything for me, and that was a big light bulb moment in my
Yeah.
life. And now, what about
Well,
with you?
I
What would
I
you?
just
Yeah,
also well, I want to add to that because there's so many people who are terrified of loving themselves because they're like, I do want to get healthier. And if I love myself, that means I accept myself as I am and I'm never going to change. So I want to use hate, reprimand, shaming so that I can get to the place where I want to be because I don't want to be this way. And so I just want to broaden the idea of self-love, that self-love isn't because you work out or because you do all the things, but loving yourself can also look like, I love you. I see you for everything you've been through and how maybe everything that you needed to do, including overeating or eating certain foods, like maybe protected you for the journey that you've been on, all that you've been through. And I love you so much. It would feel good if I had more energy or if I felt just physically better in my body, if I could move easily without pain, if I felt good in the way that I looked. Like, it's okay if we give ourselves permission to accept as we are and also say, I love you so much. It would feel better to take care of myself too. Because I know there are so many people, most of the clients that I meet are very afraid to say, if I love myself, then that means I'll stay this way forever. And that's not truly actually what I want. So loving ourselves can also be, I'm loving you into taking better care of you.
absolutely, without a doubt. Thank you for adding that on, because 100%, I think it starts with just the gentle, warm embrace of that acceptance, and then, like you said, and then it is okay also to look at this and say, okay, well, these things would inevitably make me feel better, and I know that. So thank you for sharing that story, and I want, for everyone to know that it is not a linear process. The journey that we're
Right.
on here
Oh
is,
no,
like
it's
Gina
not.
said, it can be really messy and really sometimes chaotic, and it's not
Yeah.
like if you go to school and you get your degree and then you get this and da, 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 like it's very unlikely. It's very rare to actually hear of someone's story that is just like, oh yeah, I just went this path like I thought I was supposed to, and then
And
everything just worked
actually,
out. Like,
when you're really willing to learn about yourself and you're willing to fight for connection, you could expect that it gets more and more uncomfortable because you're actually waking up to things that you've probably never let yourself wake up to before. Emotions that you checked out with busyness and I don't have the time. And right, like we can put our self-care on the back burner because what happens when we're in the bathtub and we're quiet with ourselves, emotions can start coming up. All of a sudden that bubble bath is uncomfortable. And maybe you're crying and you're like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I don't have time for this, right? So sometimes when we go into deeper levels of self-love and connection, we have this idea it's going to be all warm and fuzzy and ooey and gooey. And sometimes it's actually stripping back the layers of things we never let ourselves feel. We start observing patterns that aren't serving us, that we're like, whoa, we're waking up to the coping mechanisms that we maybe have to deal with our stress. And so sometimes waking up to all of it is very uncomfortable. And so it's so important that keep leaning in and to give yourself grace and patience and love and tenderness. And that if it feels uncomfortable, that probably means that you're doing great. Like you're going into some of the things that haven't
totally.
served you in awareness. So yeah, it's gonna look messy. That's kind of a good marker to know that you're on the right track, as if it feels super uncomfortable.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the whole sitting with discomfort and working through it, right, to grow through things is so key. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is, yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a lot of uncomfortable moments I'm sure you and I have experienced within our journey. And now I do have right now, I'm running this program, the Love Yourself Naked program, and it's all about just kind of with self-care, getting deep and stripping through those layers as to,
Amazing.
how can we love ourselves better? And one huge component of that is nutrition. And I know you're hopefully going to be able to be a guest speaker. But I did have some questions that came up from my clients that they're like, oh my goodness, ask. So is it okay if I just ask you a few questions right now?
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
sure that it would be things that resonate with those that are listening right now as well.
Yeah.
Just right out the gate, are there specific uh, foods that come to mind or specific things in the environment that we can be doing to help balance out estrogen or testosterone for men or both, men and women, just like things that we can kind of right out the gate that you're like, oh, boom, boom.
Yeah. Definitely. Your cruciferous for sure. So your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, your kale, your cabbage, those are so amazing. They're amazing detoxifiers. So they actually help detox built up hormone metabolites, which is very important for rebalancing hormones. So this is huge for women. It's also helpful for men. It helps safely detox estrogen. So it also is really preventative for hormone related cancers, but definitely helpful for rebalancing out the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone ratios. The most important thing for hormone balance is managing your stress. So even that's not a food technique, but using that breath to bring your cortisol down is very important, because when cortisol is high, that stress hormone, that drops our good reproductive hormones. And so things like testosterone in men will convert into estrogen under stress, or for women, it will drop estrogen and progesterone. So just breathing very gently and like actually feeling in your body when your body is stressed or not, and then eat lots of those cruciferous vegetables, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts. If you can't tolerate some people get really bloated from eating a lot of those types of foods. What else you can do too is have like broccoli sprouts or microgreens. You get a lot of those good beneficial compounds, but without so much of the fibers and the gassiness that some people get from a lot of those foods.
Oh, brilliant. And to the flip side of that, is there anything that right out the gate you're like, ooh, these would be some easy red flags to remove, from your diet or from something in terms of balancing hormones?
I think one of the best things that everyone could do from hormones and a health perspective is to look for inflammatory oils. Get rid of canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, any of the seed oils. They're very inflammatory. And when our can't speak. When our omega-6 and omega-3 ratio is off, it signals in our body this whole series of, if you have a lot of hormone signs, like you have bad PMS, cramping, um, acne, breast tenderness, if you have those signs of hormone imbalances, you really want to make sure that your omega-6 and omega-3 ratios are good. We get way too many omega-6s from our seed oils, which can create this inflammatory pathway and really throw off our hormones. So for proper hormone signaling, we need an abundance of omega-3s. It's really the balance that matters, but most people typically don't get enough omega-3s. So that would be from your salmon, sardines, or an omega-3 supplement. There's a lot of people who are not eating salmon or sardines and not taking omega-3s. And so much of our hormone signaling is dependent on omega-3 fatty acids. So typically when I do like blood tests, typically most people do not have adequate omega-3 levels unless they're supplementing. So just make sure that you're getting plenty of omega-3s. And then red flag, I would look out for those seed oils. Those are a big one. And they're in a lot of our foods. Skip the sunflower oil, skip the vegetable oil, the canola oil. It's in a lot of our foods.
Wow. Yeah. And that's something like I love getting those gems right now because I know there's a lot of clients that I have that they're either trying to balance their testosterone. They're like some of my male clients are having issues where their testosterone's feel, really out of whack and they're not feeling, they have low libido or just not feeling high energy and all that. And it could be, I
Mhm.
think, sometimes as simple as you just said, stress, right? Like managing our
Yeah.
stress, things like the oils that are in the foods that we're eating that we're not even aware of. And then same to the females. I have some
Yeah.
clients who are looking to get pregnant. They're having, some struggles there. They're having really bad PMS symptoms like you were just describing. And I think sometimes it's really important for us to know, yes, there's a bigger picture and it's not a one size fits all necessarily,
Yeah.
but hearing from you just saying these kind of like out the gate things that we can start doing, that's really
It,
helpful.
it can take a little investigation because there's different factors, but I think especially for men, the core pillars to preserving testosterone. We're quick to just do testosterone replacement, but it's like, why is testosterone low in the first place? And I think that's very important from a health perspective, so that you're not masking a symptom and sometimes creating more problems. So things with testosterone is, number one, stress is a big thing. Really keeping your stress low, but also blood sugar imbalances. If you're eating a lot of carbs and your blood sugar is really shifting. I have an upcoming course on mastering blood sugar, so that'll be coming up. If anybody wants to learn the ins and outs of how to balance your blood sugar, really important for hormone balance for women, for men. That was a big part of me resolving my hormone issues. We tend to eat either the wrong amount of carbohydrates or at the wrong time, and we get these big carbohydrate spikes and then crashes, and then that releases your stress hormone cortisol, and that affects your hormone production. So blood sugar, making sure that you're eating lots of good proteins, healthy fats, with some carbohydrates, but you're not getting those big spikes. And then for men, you can also have things like aromatase inhibitor. They're called aromatase inhibitors, and they block that conversion of testosterone to estrogen. An example of that would be like resveratrol. You can take as a supplement. It's also in pomegranate seeds, red grapes. So there's just different ways, overall healthy eating, that can really preserve those hormones and get them back into balance.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I got a couple more questions if you don't mind. I know we're going to
Oh
wrap up
yeah.
soon, but okay, cool. So someone had asked me the best and the easiest or most available food sources that you can eat daily to help maintain a clean gut.
So the biggest thing is fiber. I mean, fiber is amazing for so many reasons. So I like to think of think of your gut as like the fish tank, and then think of your microbiome as like the fish, and then the fiber is like the fish food. That's what's going to keep a healthy fish terranium, right? So when you eat fiber, like maybe from your vegetables, you really want to look out for fiber. My boyfriend, Raj, he got so excited once he learned about fiber that he would start picking up labels everywhere we'd go, and he'd be like, babe, look at the fiber in this package. It's amazing. And he'd be like, this 1 gram of fiber, get out of here. Like he's so excited about fiber now once he realized this analogy. When you eat the fiber, we don't get nutrients from it. We don't get calories for it. It's really just food for our microbiome. We're essentially feeding our microbiome. So we're giving them this fiber. They eat just like little fish. They eat the fiber. And then, almost like as if fish had fish poop, they have this byproduct called a short chain fatty acid that heals the lining of the gut. It actually regulates your blood sugar and inflammation. It regulates your appetite if you're going to crave more healthy foods or more sugar. Overall, it is one of the most beneficial things you could do for your gut and your entire body. And that fiber can also bind some things that are not healthy in the gut, toxins, and help actually clear them out and keep it moving. And it's one of the biggest things for hormone imbalance as well, because if we don't bind and excrete old hormones that have been used, they can recirculate and actually create hormone issues. It's not a good thing. So fiber. Start looking out for good sources of fiber. It's mainly going to come from your vegetables, some from good grains like quinoa, brown rice. Definitely getting in lots of fiber would be, I think, the best thing you could do for your gut, because you're feeding healthy bacteria.
Right, right. No, that's wonderful. I know every once in a while, usually about once a quarter, and this will segue into the next question. I get a group of clients to do with me kind of a little bit of an insulin reset. I started doing it
Yes.
years ago, and it's something that I really love. I don't go as deep into it anymore, but it's something that I notice it's helped myself and my clients. What are your thoughts on doing something like that? Like either, a 7-10 day kind of gut insulin reset, sugar detox, however you want to call it.
I think that's great. And it also comes back to, I think, connection and self-awareness. There's so many different, I don't know what your program entails. It sounds amazing. I love the idea of doing like an insulin and gut reset. And I think everyone has to really come back to the connection with themselves of how much do I want to do a health push? What degree feels good to me? And so maybe there's some, exploring like, how do I really customize things to myself? I was recently, invited to participate in I think it was like a 7-day fast with like a couple days only had like under, a couple hundred calories. And from a health perspective, they talked about the science. And I think that there's a lot of good science in doing some every once in a while extended fasts. But when I check in with myself, I'm like, I've been through such a history of finally creating trust with my body that I'm like, even though the science is there, that just doesn't feel right for me. But do I want to do a 7-day push where I clean things up and I eat whole foods and I'm nourishing my body and I'm not eating processed stuff? Yeah, that feels good to me. I can get on board with that. So not that either one is right or wrong, but I love the idea of giving our guts a break, resetting insulin. I think everyone could benefit from that, and having the self-awareness of like, when I'm doing these things, what feels nourishing to my body and what makes me feel like I get fear around food. Because just having that self-awareness of navigating like what level of cleaning things up feels really good to you so that it is a smooth transition. I think that was a mistake that I made a long time ago, is I would do something that wasn't where I truly was at, and then I would end up overeating when I was done with it. So,
Right.
but being in the right place for it, I think everyone would benefit from it.
Right. No, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I think like I have a lot of clients that they've done the crash diets, they've done the deep fast, the juice cleanses, the this, the that, whatever. And typically what we'll do is we'll just get rid of any unnecessary sugar if it's not a piece or two of fruit. Eliminating a lot, like really looking at the labels, understanding what has sugar in it that we don't recognize, our coffees and what we're using in there. Um, and so I think
It's
that's just more
amazing.
of bringing the awareness to it. So it's definitely not a really strict, like you're not getting, adequate
Yeah.
calories for your body, regardless. Just because for me, I feel like it's an easier transition from somebody, let's say, eating a bag of Oreo cookies every day and
Yep.
ice cream and chugging God knows how many, sodas or whatever else, to just kind of slowly taking baby steps to manage
Amazing.
some gut health. I feel like there's that
Yeah.
that's a but then there are some people I do think that really do benefit from, like, okay, I've got that motivation right now, that
Yep.
external thing going on. I'm ready to make that change. And maybe they
Yep.
could benefit a lot from doing something a little bit stronger. Is there, last
Definitely.
question, is there anything that you like wish everyone knew today about gut and hormone health?
When it comes to gut and hormone health, I would say that there's so many complex things with it, but I would say really that if the best thing that you could do for any aspect of your health is when you look at your plate, challenge yourself to get more colors.
Mm.
That's it. And it seems so simple that we almost don't want to do it. Like that feels too simple. But what happens is you're going to get a huge spectrum of all these different compounds that are going to be activating things that you don't even realize in your body. And I do a weekly newsletter where I pull the science of different compounds of different foods and what they're doing to create healing. One of the cool studies that I just want to share that I found last week was there was a study where they looked at this compound called capsaicin in spicy peppers like cayenne, different spicy peppers. And they found that when people ate that spicy pepper, it activated their gene expression of this gene known as the longevity gene. And so it was actually creating healing in the lining of the arteries when they ate this pepper. So what is so cool is I pull these studies every week and I get so inspired by the power of food to activate these systems in our bodies, to create more hormones, to heal the gut, to heal the lining of our arteries, to lower inflammation in the brain, and actually improve our quality of life. I mean, these studies are showing that people are having better memory, their blood pressure is coming down, their hormones are rebalancing. So I'm so inspired by the power of food. And so if I could take all that science that I've been studying and looking at and translating it, it's truly eat colorful foods because there's so much power in that. And those fibers are going to feed your gut microbiome so that you have a healthy, wide range of protective gut microbiome. And that's really key to getting your gut back on track, your hormones balanced. And I would say that's the best tip you could do.
I love that tip. So I'm challenging everybody that's listening right now to color your plate, take a picture of it, post it on your Instagram, and tag
Yeah.
myself and Gina so that we can give you some kudos for your colorful plate. So Gina, your
Totally.
website is going to be listed in the show notes. It's ginaworful.com. You're a registered dietitian, once again, master of human nutrition. You drop a weekly newsletter that I encourage everyone to go to her website right now and sign up for that, because she has so much beautiful information. I'm sure that you all have gathered from that, this interview today. And I think, Gina, you potentially might be taking on some new clients, or do you have some new courses coming up soon?
I do have some really fun workshops coming up. One of them is mastering blood sugar that I mentioned. And so that one's really great if you have really stubborn weight loss resistance, or you notice you really crave sweets after eating, or you get really tired after eating, or you're trying to rebalance out hormones. That mastering blood sugar class is more of the food strategy. And then I'm also teaching a conquering cravings workshop, which is if you know that you struggle with food cravings or overeating, we go deep into that mechanism I talked about of how the stress response actually triggers food cravings, so that you can really understand your body and connect with it deeper.
Boom, mic drop. There she is. Connection, connection. And I just have to, last but not least, say Gina and I met literally randomly at Bottle Rock, because her boyfriend and I were hosting interviews for the artists there, and it was one of those synergistic moments. The minute we met, it was like, all right, we're in the same frequency. I can't wait
Yeah.
to really get to know you and Raj. And I'm just want to thank you so much for being here
Mm.
on What's the Word today. It's really important I really want to impact at least one person per day to make a positive shift in their life, and to be able to have beautiful speakers like you come on, who are so knowledgeable in a specific topic, and can share this information. It means the world to me. So I want to thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to come visit you guys in San Diego. I'm coming back soon. And yeah, thank you so much, Gina.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I love your message, and I love everything you share. So thanks so much, Jamie.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on What's the Word. So that's it. Color your plate today, and be sure to send us those pictures. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.